Hello, Dave.
Hello, Charlie.
How are you, my friend?
I am doing well.
Okay, good to hear.
And
Good to hear.
on this episode, we're going to shake it, but don't break it. And if you can't shake it, then fake it.
Yes, this was a very interesting episode. Um,
This is definitely the one you've been looking forward to talking about.
well, honestly, I think, this episode. There's a lot of different levels to this episode. Some of which are positive, and some of which are very negative. Um, One thing I found most interesting was this little bit of ageist culturalism that we see in this, when compared to the last episode. Because, of course, the last episode centered very much around the idea of jazz as this really cool American art form. And then in this one, we see this idea of disco, that crazy music the kids are listening to, as very much, the root of all evil. And I found that ironic, just in the sense that, of course, in its day when jazz was the crazy music the kids were listening to, it was absolutely the devil's music, that disco, of course, is played out as here.
Yeah, and I was expecting a much different type of vibe of an episode based on the
Hmm.
name Alice in Disco Land. And then
Hmm.
seeing the precursor scenes before the episode started. But then once it got involved in, the actual episode, then there was a much darker theme going
Hmm.
on. But we'll definitely talk about that.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised that has been exposed to radiation, and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
This is GammaCast, and I am Dave. We are going to be talking about episode 7 of season 2. This is Alice in Disco Land. Director Sigmund Newfield Jr. Writers are Karen Harris, Jill Sherman Donner. Original air date November 3rd, 1978. So we're not quite at 1980 yet.
Hmm.
Synopsis: David discovers that the troubled teenager daughter of a late friend is working in a shady discotheque as a dancer. He tries to help her to overcome a dependency with alcohol. I guess going into the episode, I had this vision that we were going to actually see the Hulk, bust a move out on the dance floor. Yeah, we got a much heavier duty tone with the whole alcoholism, the teenager having that problem with substance abuse.
Yeah.
And so we got into another episode where there was the deeper theme that was going on and kind of a message that the writers or producers, the
Yeah.
directors wanted to, hand out to, the viewing public. And of course,
Yeah.
this one telling the dangers of alcoholism,
Mhm.
especially with the teenagers in the discotheques.
Yeah. This was certainly another very special episode. Although one that I kind of found interesting on a certain level, you know, um, there are a lot of documentaries out there on club kids, which, are essentially what what our character here was, which was a young person that was essentially, you don't want to say employed by the club, but who was brought in by the club either with the promise of free booze or with some cash that was, spread around through various means. to essentially draw the crowds because they were the cool kids. And if you had the cool kids at your club, other people would come, whether they were the best dancers or the most interesting characters. This idea of the club kid, of which, for what it's worth, there are a lot of these, lost trustafarians and just kids that don't belong elsewhere who find themselves in that club life. And so it was kind of interesting to me, as a person, who has tangentially rushed up against that culture. It was interesting to see that culture dating back all the way here to 1978. And of course, as we've said, probably it's a culture that's far older, probably going all the way back to the jazz clubs that Sung from the last episode frequented as a young man. Who knows? There's a whole other, McGee file of, Sung as a jazz club kid. But I thought that was interesting. It's a little weird, and this is something you have to call out, which is that when you have it as luck would have it, this character, making the character someone who had this heretofore unknown relationship with David Banner that includes this idea that he was he's the person who's reading the Lewis Carroll to her, which, again, as we kind of touched on in the child abuse story, could take a real creepy turn very easily
Right.
in a different era. But that all these factors coalesce around David running into this girl at this club. I don't know if that was necessary as a plot line. I think that you could have just had David's own nosiness be the cause of David and, David wanting to help this girl. But I do understand that maybe they felt that, maybe they would have, as people often do, ask, why is David always sticking a nose where it doesn't belong? When people don't want his help, why is he always forcing it? And to that extent, having that familial relationship explains that.
Yeah, and he was actually the godparent of her.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. Just the giving a bit of a backstory of David, and giving us those scenes that a relationship that he had prior to being on the run.
Mhm.
So I rather enjoyed that aspect of it. And I'm a fan of that kind of moment. It would have been better had she had like a full recollection of him. Um,
Yeah.
but given the the situation that she was in, and given the fact that she was you know drowning herself in booze, I get the fact why there would be cloudy memories. Um,
Yeah. And of course, she last saw him when she was a very young girl.
right, right,
And I get that. Although, again, I would think that if there would have been a slightly deeper connection, that would have made a little more sense. But it is what it is. Ugh.
now
David's on the run. He can't have people recognizing him.
right, and something else that I wanted to call out: the actress that played her, Donna Wilkes,
Hmm.
in the '80s, she was in a movie called Angel. So
Hmm.
for anyone that had seen that, that's when I was watching the episode. I was like, I know her from something. I just didn't remember what it was.
Hmm.
So tonight I looked it up on IMDb to find out where
Yeah.
that recollection was, and that was the movie. Uh,
Yeah. If I recall correctly, she is the honor roll student whose sister was a prostitute and dies, and so she goes into the dark underbelly of the prostitution world to find her sister's killers. If I recall correctly,
I think
um,
that's about right. That's my
yeah,
recollection of the movie also.
I mean that's either Angel or Angel Two. The original Angel might have been that she was an honor roll student who was just also a prostitute, and Angel Two has that plot line of finding the sister's murderer, but I can't guarantee that. It's
Right.
been a long time since I strolled through that VHS section at Blockbuster, so
But
I can't.
you remember the plot line of one of them,
Yes,
which is good.
one of them, one or both. Yes, but yeah, no, because do know that there was Angel and then there was Angel 2. I know that there
Right.
was two episodes, and I don't know if there was a consistency of cast or not. But sort of like that Death Wish series where you have the person who has to go avenge someone else
Right.
because, well, that's where we are.
All right. So let's talk about in this episode. David's working in the bar. He sees Alice, who's
Hmm.
the girl we were just talking about. She's obviously a dancer. He's remembering the past with her. She obviously doesn't recognize him, but he does recognize the fact that she has a drinking problem.
Hmm.
So much so that in one particular instance, she ends up leaving the discotheque and going up to where there was a big sign there,
Yes.
and the rest of her party friends are on the street level trying to talk her down, and she's thinking of
Yeah.
just jumping.
Well,
Um,
yeah, but you're actually missing. You're burying the lead on that.
okay, go ahead.
What was happening in that scene wasn't that she was so drunk. It was that they had stopped serving alcohol in the club to the minors
That's
because
right.
someone had called in, and so she was actually going through alcohol withdrawal and delirium tremens, which is something that does happen with hardcore alcoholics, which is that they begin to hallucinate.
Yeah, but wasn't David the one that called in, if I remember right?
I believe it's strongly implied that yes, he was the guy who
Yeah,
called it in.
right.
Although they, I think they kind of backtracked that a bit at times too. That it was just this ongoing investigation, and everyone thought it was David calling him in, but actually it wasn't. So I'm not quite sure who called it in. I don't know if it was supposed to be David or if it was. We were supposed to think that maybe it was David, and then it gets revealed that it was completely unrelated to David.
I just remember the guy that was investigating was in leagues with the discotheque owner. Uh,
Hmm.
so I remember that aspect of it. And you're right. She was going through
Yeah.
withdrawal from not having the alcohol. So she was up on there. She just wanted, she's having the hallucinations. She's going to jump. David is trying his best to get to her. There's a locked door. He can't get through it. So in the
Hmm.
frustration, that's what causes the Hulk out. And then he ends
Hmm.
up getting busting through the sign to rescue her, and then takes her to safety.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
and and that, of course, is a really nice scene. You can certainly make the argument that it's another one of these scenes where a Hulk shows up, but did we need a Hulk? But I think it works overall for the storyline, and it does save the girl and helps her to realize that she has a deeper problem.
Right. And then after that, then David confronts her. She's in the park, and he takes her to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Hmm.
And then there's this woman that she's able to get Alice to confide in her and open up to the group. And so then you get the view that Alice now acknowledges the fact truly that yes, I've got a problem, which we know as from a lot of the movies of that time, that that's the first step, is acknowledging that you have a problem, and at that point she
Hmm.
is. And so much so that a little later in the episode, when her dance partner is trying to get her back into the discotheque, he's actually trying to bribe her with another bottle of booze, and
Hmm.
she's tempted, but at the same time she's like, I don't want to go back in the discotheque because it's putting me back in the scenario. I don't want to put myself back there because then I'll go back to where I was with the problem. So that part was really really interesting, the way that they played into her trying to protect herself, and now acknowledging the problem. And then we go a little bit further in where David says, you know what, you're a great dancer. I think you should go. So I don't know if that was actually the best advice to give, but
Mhm.
obviously to wrap up the episode, we needed to have that moment where we get her back in and her being able to acknowledge the talent that she has as being a
Mhm.
dancer.
Yes, and of course gives us the chance for the
Another
Disco
Hulk out.
Lonely Man. Well, oh yeah, that too. I was going to talk about the Disco Lonely Man theme. But again, with the Hulk, this is another one of these items where there's an inconsistency to what causes a Hulk out. And it's funny to me because I remember watching this as a little boy, and when you see David smashing against the chair, your immediate thought is, oh, he's trying to Hulk out. In truth, what we're actually observing is that no, he's not. He just happens to, break free from the chair. And I remember as a young boy watching this and specifically thinking that, oh, he's trying to Hulk out. But in fact, he's not. He's just trying to break the chair. But it goes to this idea of an inconsistency of what causes the Hulk out, that doesn't cause the Hulk out. But then later, when he's sort of trying to break out of the cage, that does cause the Hulk out.
Yeah, and actually, I missed another very fun key element.
Hmm.
Jack McGee shows up, and
Yes.
so he's working with the dance partner
Hmm.
because once he's found out that there's a reward for from the National Register for 10 grand for information about the Hulk, he's trying to get his dance partner, I don't know if it's girlfriend or not, but dance partner to help
Yeah.
out. To so that he can get that money. He wants that $10,000.
Well, yeah, because as he points out, not everybody has a trust fund
Right.
that they're living off of. You
Right.
know.
And what that led to was a great moment where Jack McGee is actually in her apartment trying to talk to her, and of course David shows up and he's observing Jack in her apartment, and he's got
Hmm.
to hold back. So
Yeah.
that blends back to the near misses that we've been getting
Hmm.
in previous episodes that we haven't had in a while, which was really cool.
Yeah. No, I mean it was. This was a good Jack McGee episode. Again, he's it's always this problem with Jack McGee about how competent of a reporter is he. Because obviously, a little bit of investigation, he's going to find that there was a ripped up uh, Club Pandemonium T-shirt in the building where the Hulk was seen. It would not have been hard for him to piece together that the Hulk was possibly a member of the Club Pandemonium staff.
And there very well could have been the word staff on that shirt too.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but it is just it's an interesting thing with Jack McGee where you do wonder, is he the world's greatest or the world's worst reporter? And you don't know if you ever really get an answer for that in these episodes. But it is interesting.
Really,
You know,
if I could just have Jack McGee take a few moments and they write in the fact where he's asking about, I understand there's this other guy that is around the same time frame the Hulk shows up. Can you tell me about him?
yeah,
I'd love to see that dialogue, but I
yeah.
have a feeling we're not going to get that.
No, I don't think we ever do because I don't think Jack McGee ever puts it together that there's a guy who turns into the Hulk.
Right.
And for what it's worth, the level of shape shifting that's occurring is pretty unforeseeable. You know, when you see a Hulk, you're going to assume that it's a Hulk and it's always a Hulk. You're not going to assume the Hulk turns back into Puny Banner. It's only if you understood that the Hulk did go through that change that you're going to be able to make that assumption.
But I mean, you've got the circle of friends that now know that David
Hmm.
Banner turns into the Hulk. Yeah, I mean, the more people that get to know this, air quote secret, you figure somebody's going to say something. You know,
Well,
I,
yeah, but except that again, this is this. There's the time differential. That 1978. Who are you? Who would you tell and who could you tell? It's not like you could go onto a message board and say, "Oh my goodness, the Hulk is actually this really nice guy named David. Don't believe what you read in the National Register." That's not a thing that occurs.
right. Yeah, nowadays they'd just be able to put that on Facebook or tweet it out, and then all of a sudden
Well,
everybody
exactly.
knows. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or however they'd approach it. But that's not the world we're living in. And
Right.
so within this 1978 world, the fact that a handful of people know his secret, um, so long as they're all relatively trustworthy people who are not going to blow David's secret, it's not a problem.
And maybe that's what we'll do on our season 2 wrap up episode is we'll try to recollect everybody that knows his secret at the end of season 2.
Yes. And to that extent, for whatever it's worth, Alice never clues in on this. She doesn't know that David is the David that she grew up with. She doesn't know that David becomes the Hulk. She just knows that. In fact, I think she actually thinks that her experience with the Hulk might have just been a hallucination.
Right. And I guess my point was because the previous 3 episodes before this one,
Mhm.
each one of those had a moment where somebody learned his secret. Now, granted, one of
Yeah.
them was a blind man, one of them
Mhm.
was a kid. So, then maybe, there's the, are we going to really believe what this person is saying? But, I don't know. It just feels like, with the,
Yeah.
that swath of people that now know his secret, that I don't know. It just feels like somebody's going to say something, and especially if you got this really nosy reporter, that he's going to get wise to it. But we're getting way off topic, though, aren't we?
Well, what I do want to say, like, the real risk is the kid, because the two adults in that, the Native American and the Asian and the Chinese gentleman, they both know how to keep their mouth shut. They both know how not to talk to Jack McGee. The real threat is the little kid, but it's all a question of how much weight that might be given. Or if anyone's even going to think in 1978 to talk to the kid about who saved him. That's the other aspect of it. Is the people that know his secret have all been people from marginalized groups. A Native American, a Chinese American who is also blind, and then also a child who is the victim of abuse. These are all people that, to one extent or another, are not people that get the greatest weight to their words in our hierarchical Anglo-Saxon culture, that exists in 1978.
Right.
So I think to that extent there is, David's got some freedom there, but he does still worry about Jack McGee.
Yeah, I think we need to get back to the episode, though.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the moment where he's downstairs. They lock him up because they believe that he had called in the the group that was investigating, that they were serving
Mhm.
alcohol to minors. So the club owner and one of his goons lock him up downstairs. He, in the course of trying to break free, has that Hulk out moment, which puts him right there in the middle of the discotheque
Mhm.
after the classic dance that did have the disco version of the Lonely Man. Very cool, by the way. I just love that.
Mhm.
And so we actually get the Hulk on the disco floor, but it's after the music's been played. So it's not like we had the it's akin to the final round episode where you had to throw a situation where you put him in a boxing ring. This put the Hulk on the
Mhm.
disco floor. Like I said, what was missing was the music playing and the disco ball going. Even though the disco ball does drop on the Hulk and it causes him to kind of get freaked out, and then he
Mhm.
runs out, or he growls to everybody, and then he runs out. There's Jack McGee another growl, and then he runs away.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wrap up the episode where, and at the final scene, he's talking with Alice again. She's like, "All right, well, I'm leaving town because I'm going to go become a disco instructor," and she gives him the book Alice in Wonderland as a parting gift. So that was really kind of a sweet moment.
That was very nice. The way that they tied it all up at the end. I thought, one thing that does bug me in this is that, of course, the sleazy dancer does bring the bottle of booze to Alice, and then when David does confront her later, he does leave the bottle of booze there, which is just like the worst thing you can do with someone who's dealing with alcoholism.
Yeah, I guess I didn't understand that either, and I was just thinking that maybe it was I don't know, test of, her tenacity to, beat her problem. Maybe that was what they were trying to demonstrate.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think putting her back into the club scenario and leaving her with a bottle of booze, I don't think that was what somebody would recommend if somebody is going through the steps of Alcoholic Anonymous. So is there any parting thoughts that you want to wrap up for this episode?
Not really. I mean, it was a great episode. Despite its flaws, it was a great episode. It dealt with a very interesting topic. We got to see David Banner be very compassionate towards someone, which was nice. I don't know, I haven't seen the next episode yet, but I'll be looking forward to it. I know that next episode he is again actively seeking out a cure, which could be interesting, but we're gonna have to see what happens.
Yeah, that one's called Killer Instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to read too much into it, so I like to keep it a surprise. This definitely does lend into the popularity of the discotheque, era that was in the late 70s. So I respect that, as part of what we talked about in the past episodes of being a mini time capsule. So I think this really gave another flavor of that. Even though we did have disco moments in the season 2 premiere episode, Married, and that was a much different flavor of disco than this one. That one was really playing off a very tropey disco-esque type of thing with the creepy guy with the bald cap thing going on and the chest hair. So that was a much different feel than this one, which was really laden on the theme of alcoholism. So much different flavor, but still the same thought process around discos. Didn't have a lot of him trying to cure himself, but a lot of good Jack McGee stuff. So, there's ebbs and flows with what I like, what I don't like. I'm definitely think this is a fun episode, so I do recommend it. So, with that, Charlie, what is your social media credentials?
Okay, so if you would like to tweet along with me as I live tweet episodes of The Incredible Hulk on MeTV at 7 o'clock Eastern on Saturdays, you can do so at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way, write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com.
Cool. And I am Dave. I handle our 80s Reboot accounts. So Twitter, that's at 80s Reboot. Tumblr is 80sreboot.tumblr.com. Facebook is /80s Reboot. And our blog is southgatemediagroup.com/80srebootblog. Of course, shoot us an email at 80sreboot@gmail.com. We'd love to get your feedback on Charlie and my thoughts on these episodes, and if you send us an email, we'll read it on the podcast and talk about it. So we appreciate everybody hulking out with us, and have a good night.
Good night.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.
Yeah. And, it was interesting. These were good episodes. These were really good episodes. And I'm looking to see where they go next. I do feel like the quality of these shows are definitely improving. And
I agree. I agree. And like I said, I need to get out of the headspace of it's got to be a superhero type moment. And I enjoy them a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're never going to get that until we get to the 1980s movies.
Right. Okay. So,
which if we ever get to, and if they ever make those available to us,
right.
Those are, because when he starts, the closest you're going to get is I think in the 4th season, we're going to get to him facing the Proto Hulk, and that is going to be pretty cool. But
in my thought process, or my, if you continue to give him a front loader to fight, or a gorilla, or a bear, or multiple bad guys like you did with ninjas, then I can get my head wrapped around that. But if you're just giving me, like going back to a Child in Need episode, sure, it helped the storyline along, but it was one man.
Yeah.
I don't know if you really needed a Hulk moment. And so that's the part that, I guess that episode was my turning point, and realizing just go along for it as a dramatic series and try not to think of it as, do you need an Incredible Hulk? And then I enjoy them more. So, and that's what happened with this one. So I should let you get to bed, though.
Yes. Anyway, it's always a pleasure, Dave. Can't wait to hear these on air, and we'll try and do 2 more next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you then, Dave. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.